Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's do this thing. Today we got an episode filled with wisdom, contemplation, and the pursuit of truth. So let's get this one going. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. All right, Business Bros. Today we have a truly exceptional guest with us. He's the seeker of truth, a collector of insight, a purveyor of understanding. In this episode, we'll explore the profound importance of understanding and truth, and how these elements impact our decisions, relationships, and our journey through life. So get ready for an enlightening conversation that delves into the art of making complex ideas accessible and the power of compassion in our pursuit of knowledge. So let's welcome to the show, Mr. Tom Pierce. Tom, the party has begun. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be with you. I'm not sure I can match your energy, but I'm already a little bit hyped by it. So I appreciate it.
Good. Then I got you going, man. That's the whole point of this shebang. All right, let's start off with the most obvious thing, and this is always the case. Everybody who comes on the show has a business, something that they're selling, a way that they're making a living. What are you here promoting today?
Well, as your intro said, actually, my primary objective is to promote understanding. I've reached that point in my career where I'm approaching semi-retirement, and I am just hoping to spend whatever years I've got left trying to distill 30 years worth of business experience in some way that's useful to others. Yeah, we're still trying to grow our company. I2S is the name of the company, Integrated Information Systems. Yeah, always on the lookout for new customers. But to be honest with you, we're not selling. We're trying to satisfy the customers we have, and we're growing organically through those relationships. So always welcoming more interested parties, but not a salesman. Never wanted to be. Never needed to be. Just happy to share whatever value we have to offer with anybody who comes to us.
30 years of entrepreneurship, of being in business, it's no small feat. There's only one reason why you make it to 30 years. It's because you kind of figure something out, who you're talking to, who you're going after, what kind of message you want to put out there, what kind of relationships you want to build. Who's your target audience? Who is it that you kind of jive with, that you connected with, that you've been able to build a 30-year career with?
So the history is almost entirely within the Department of Defense. I came out of a 4-year stint in the Army off of an ROTC scholarship, basically when personal computers were being born in their infancy. And shortly after I left the Army, I got contacted by one of the people I had met in the Army and invited me on board as a consultant to a defense contractor. After about 7 years with them, to be honest with you, I really didn't like the way they did business. I felt like I could do better on my own. And so I hung up my own shingle and won a contract away from them, contracting directly with the Department of the Navy. And from there have been supporting defense contractors within the Navy. Only in the past 5 years or so have we've been branching out. So now my passion, my heart at the end of my career is to take 30 years of what I've learned in the manufacturing space within the Defense Department and try to translate that into the commercial world, and particularly small businesses who really can't afford the huge prices of the big enterprise software vendors. I feel like we've got a lot to offer them. We're currently working with a small paint shop and a small machine shop, trying to make available to them some of the technology that is currently carrying $1 million price tags, seeking just the big businesses. I think it should be available more democratically, more to the small business owner who struggles, with the strengths and weaknesses of Microsoft Excel. I love it and hate it, but but there's more that can be done to help even a small business. And I feel like if 30 years worth of experience in the space is worth anything, then maybe it's worth a little something to help this growing kind of a renaissance of manufacturing in the small businesses. Just shouldn't be reserved for the large businesses alone.
No, it definitely shouldn't. And I think as technology has been advancing more and more, you have more open source things going out there.
Yeah.
People are kind of being invited to become part of this growth project. I think that's how most of Google's applications kind of blew up, whether you're using Microsoft Excel or using Google Sheets. It came from like open sources like that. And it's because people like you are coming out and saying, look, this is great. And we've helped a lot of people, but the little guys kind of got to get ahead too. Otherwise, you're going to, the disparity between the haves and the have-nots going to continue to grow, which is a major problem that we're facing right now in our overall economy. You went into the military, and that's kind of how you got your start. And I like to share with my students like the opportunities that are out there aside from just going the traditional college route. Tell me about that educational journey of yours and how you how it kind of brought you to where you are today.
Certainly. So I grew up in it. My father was career Air Force. I had two uncles that were involved in the Army, not their whole careers, but I certainly grew up living the Department of Defense life, and it was very appealing to me, primarily for the sense of discipline, for the sense of purpose, and even in the ROTC experience at college, where I was on scholarship there, the focus in what they would teach you. Every hour you come into class and the instructor says, by the end of this hour, you will know how to ... And by the end of the hour, guess what? You know how to. And it was so clear and so focused and so utilitarian, so practical, so useful that I compared that to the 8 a.m. philosophy class that I was in. It's like, there's a difference here. And that held true throughout my experience in the Army. That the people there are very mission focused, very clear about what they're trying to accomplish, very clear about their directions, about their chain of command. But after 4 years of that, I realized, but I wasn't really pursuing my passion, which had been basically math since I was in 5th grade, and bought my first algebra book because I was interested in it. And then when the first computers came out, I still remember the day that Radio Shack introduced their first TRS-80. I spent the entire day. I went there when the doors opened Saturday morning, didn't even realize time had passed until they kicked me out when the doors were closing, just trying to learn how to make this machine do things. And then the two blended because I realized that there was an opportunity to use all these different kinds of computers. This was pre-DOS, pre-Windows. This was Commodore 64 and, just whatever you could find. But I was able to use computers to solve real world problems that had a real focused mission. And that has just stuck with me throughout my career. That I actually once had a PhD in computer science from Georgia Tech explain to some of my potential clients that I wanted to use the computer to compute, which it really at that day and time was novel because the original uses of computers were primarily word processing, storage and retrieval of documents, and there just wasn't nearly as much computational power, I remember the first time I tried to put my own newspaper route on a computer, and it would just barely fit in the memory. So as the technology has grown, the number of problems that are solvable with accessible technology, not just the room full of computer, but something that you can hold in your hand, has grown. And I'm just a problem solver by nature, and that's kind of what led me into the computing end of the Defense Department. And I'd kind of reached the limit of what I could do while in uniform, and I found that there were just more opportunities opening up in the contracting world, where my age wasn't a limitation. Yeah, maybe it's a limitation now because I'm old, but when I was young, people kind of tend to look down on you when you're young, that you can't possibly know anything. But it gave me more opportunities, and the opportunities just keep, organically growing as you build reputation, as you build communication, build relationships.
Oh, Tom, age is just a number, man. But when you drop companies like Radio Shack on here, and there's a bunch of kids here who don't even know what that company is anymore, it says a little something, right?
It
But
is
that
hard to
was a different time, man.
explain.
I
Exactly.
remember having a huge paperweight that we called this computer at my house, and I was
Yes.
so excited because it could run Windows, and that was like a whole different thing. I still didn't get it to work for a long time until my little brother decided that he was going to figure this thing out. And around that time, we started having some dial-up, and he started taking up the phone, and that's where we had our squabbles. But again, different times, right? Accessing things,
Exactly.
it changes the way we kind of interact with the world. And today they don't know anything different other than being attached literally at the palm of your hand. If you were going to give advice to somebody getting started today, now that technology is where it is today, where would you guide them? Where would you tell them to go as far as starting entrepreneurship in the tech space?
I think the most difficult thing in today's world is because there are so many opportunities, right? It's an embarrassment of riches on the opportunities that are there. Somewhere in that supermarket of choices, something is just going to resonate with you. Some piece of it is just going to speak to your soul, and it's going to make your eyes light up. And it might even take your closest friends to recognize it. Like, dude, when you talk about this, you really get excited. You need to find that niche, that avenue, that entry ramp, and explore it, because that kind of passion can sustain you through a lot of the hiccups and downturns that are going to come your way. But then also I speak of it as an entry ramp, because once you're on board with a passion, your passion tends to grow in every direction. It's sort of, think of a tree. It's not just growing up, the roots are growing down and they're spreading out and the branches are spreading. And your connections and your network and your exposure and your ability to communicate with other people in the various industries that involve technology grows naturally. It's not like you have to pick a major and go to college and learn everything there is to learn about it in 4 years. It's much more like the way I have got grandchildren now, much more like the way a grandchild learns language, right? It's by imitation, it's by experimentation. It's that free form, passionate curiosity that you want to find early and just hang on to for dear life, and always try to stay in the center of your passion, and try. I've heard people give the advice before: take whatever job pays you the most money. No, don't do that. That's short-lived. It's temporary. Take the one that stimulates and cultivates your passion long-term. And if that fire goes out, take a different path.
Yeah, passion is definitely fuel, because it doesn't matter what you do. You spend enough time doing it, you're not going to want to get up and go in the morning. You're going to have
Right.
issues that pop up. They're going to have problems, whether it's physical ailments, or you're just
Mhm.
tired, or there's problems at work that you just don't want to go put that fire out. All those things are going to kind of stop you from doing those things. And if that passion's not there, you're going to see real quick why people quit and move
Right.
on to something else. You've been in business for 30 plus years. You've seen a lot of things come and go, trends come
Right.
and go. I mean, we went from 8 tracks to cassette tapes to DVDs to what are we now MP3s and digital files. So everything's changing always, constantly. And even though you probably had a plan for business, you made some mistakes along the way. What are some of those mistakes that you can remember that have been kind of monumental to guiding you as you go through the next couple years here in business?
Oh, that's such a long list. Let me see if I can pick out 2 or 3. My first mistake was in contracting. I didn't read the fine print, right? I spent an awful lot of time in the law library, but one little detail I missed was that the Navy was going to withhold 5% until completion of the contract, which was really hard since I was running on a 4% profit margin. So my first several years, I was running negative 1% on a starting investment of $5,000. That got tough. So read the fine print. I made a very bad hire early on because I was in a hurry. So the sense of urgency that I've got to get somebody on board basically ended up hiring the first resume I got, didn't do the background check, didn't, do the due diligence. I even had a partner that advised me against hiring him, but I let my sense of desperation lead me into a trap that took me years to unplug from. So that was another major one. More recently, I almost lost my business because I missed some details on the accounting. I didn't have a financial background. And early on, I didn't surround myself with enough people that really understood the finance. I've corrected that since then. But when I had a downturn, I had to start laying people off. Some of the financial liabilities I had incurred weren't on book. For example, I had established a precedent of buying out accrued vacation. And even though it wasn't a policy, the precedent made me vulnerable if I didn't pay it out. So paying out accrued vacation almost bankrupted me on cash flow. I was still fine on the balance sheet, but managing cash flow is very often more difficult. I think bad cash flow hurts more startups than what things look like on the balance sheet. So that hurt.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine then all of a sudden you talk about the time crunch and the pressure, all of a sudden those accounts receivables start getting sold for pennies on the dollars just to make cash flow, just to make payroll. And it's definitely not a good business practice. Cash flow management is vitally important. What is it that you do now? How do you help your clients? Obviously you're doing the DoD. You mentioned some of these small companies that you're helping. What is it that you do for them? Like a case study, an example that kind of shows what it is that your company does for them.
So if there's one, I hate to call it a secret sauce, but if there's one unusual aspect of the way my business started and has sustained, it's the slash between programmer and analyst. Our business cards used to say programmer analyst, and it's like, well, which are you, a programmer or an analyst? And since then, the world is kind of divided and fragmented and specialized to where you are either a data scientist or you are a software developer. And I've always been both. I started programming in order to help me do more efficient, more sophisticated analysis. So that's what we do for our clients now, small and large. For some of the larger defense corporations, we've got our hands on many millions, billions of rows of data that overwhelm most analysts, but we both write the software to do the data migration from one system to another, the integration, the aggregation, the simulation modeling, and the presentation layer to try to actually put that data in front of somebody and help them understand it. One of the best compliments I've ever received was from one of the high-ranking among my clients who said, everybody else gives me data, you guys give me information. Helping people actually understand this flood of data points that hits them every day is what makes scales fall off of eyes and people get aha moments. And that's when they start seeing clearly and making better decisions and, hiring when they should hire and, laying off when they absolutely have to. Letting them see what they need to know to make sound business decisions. It's harder than the beginning.
Yeah, that's I feel like what basically what you do best, right, is giving them that clarification, because at the end of the day, there's so many different data points. I was listening to an Amazon presentation to help, they're attracting people and businesses to advertise with Amazon. And they're talking about the internal data that they have, that it's not a third party. It's all the data from their existing customer base, the interactions that they have. I can imagine how much data they are compiling, but the relevance of that data and how to put it into play, that's where that confusion comes in. You can collect a ton of data points and that's great. But if you don't know how to utilize those data points, then it's not really telling you anything. A wave can hit you on the beach or you can surf on it. Like it depends on how you use that wave of information coming your way. I mean, that's literally what you guys do best, right?
Exactly. I believe it was Nate Silver that came out with a book not too many years ago about separating the signal from the noise. I grew up in East Tennessee going to football games at Neyland Stadium, and 100,000 people can make a lot of noise. but you're sitting next to somebody trying to have a conversation in the midst of all that noise, and that's extremely challenging. So being able to filter out the noise to where you can have meaningful dialogue, meaningful conversation, draw out insights, share wisdom, and it's one of those things, sort of the inverse proportionality. If you're trying to have a in-depth, serious conversation that you think really matters to somebody you care about, you're probably going to seek out a very quiet place and not have to raise your voice and use all the subtleties of nuance you can get. So trying to create that sense of quiet clarity in a world when you are bombarded with information and people clamoring for your attention is more a job of filtration than anything else. Learning how to ignore what doesn't need your attention is an essential part of being able to focus on what does.
It is definitely a struggle. And I feel like every business is trying to improve on something, right? They're trying to get something better. For a lot of them, it's that data. How do I use this information that I got? I've been collecting name, email, and phone number, but what's a hot lead? What's a cold lead? How do I adjust it? How do I, and it makes a big difference when we're talking about cash flow earlier, where you're going to focus your attention, because you need that return. You want to focus your attention on those big ticket items that might take, 6 month sales cycle, or can you focus on something that's going to be closed in a week and give you the cash flow that you need like right away? Like, those things are things you need to know when to apply what strategy and where. What do you feel your business is struggling with today? What are you trying to improve upon in your business model? You did mention you were going after some of these smaller businesses just to kind of help. What is it that you need help with?
So, and the problem statement is so similar from large, medium, and small businesses. It's only the names and characters that change. You get one guy wearing 20 hats, but it's the same 20 problems he's trying to solve, just less time to do it with. And if I had to put it in one word, what we struggle with that I am most passionate about still is the robustness of information. In all human relationships, like the more you get to know how computer systems really work, the more insight you'll gain into how human relationships really work as well. And as humans, even as we met for the first time here just a few minutes ago, you're reading facial expressions, you're reading just infinite almost number of nuance in order to establish what is the connection, what do we have in common. And when you get a little bit deeper, it's, do I trust what this person tells me? Can I rely on this person? We've just gone through a move and a building process of the home I'm in now. We've been in about 3 or 4 weeks through about 12 subcontractors. Something that is just as prevalent in the house construction industry as it is in the Department of Defense industry is the culture of deception. People will lie to you systematically and routinely. I'll be there tomorrow. It's tomorrow. Where are you? I'm sorry, something came up. It'll be next Saturday. That part's going to be in a week. It's been 2 weeks. Where's the part? I've had professional salesmen tell me you cannot survive in sales without deception. I don't buy it. So establishing credibility to where people actually have confidence in what you say is equally important in the human realm as it is in the digital realm. And I think in the digital realm, it's getting even more challenging. Just the deep fakes that are possible now, the amount of data that you can't believe what you see or hear, trying to filter out misinformation, disinformation, whatever you want to call it, and actually build a relationship with your data sources to where you can establish trust, credibility, confidence. Now you've got a robust flow of information that you can actually build a business on.
That trust factor makes a big difference. And I agree with you. I don't think you got to have deception to be a good salesperson. I think actually the most successful salespeople are the ones who are honest, even with the bad news, because oftentimes it's that bad news that you need to hear. And if you're not telling me that negative stuff, that stuff that I know, it's going to irritate me. I'm not necessarily mad at you. I'm just know that that's a problem. And anytime there's a problem, you're going to get upset at it, but you're going to work through it and you're going to address it. And that's kind of the key. As long as you're you're bringing value in that way, I think you're going to have a win-win scenario. You're the captain of the ship. You are taking this company in a new direction, almost kind of pivoting a little bit from the Department of Defense. Where do you see your company? Where do you see I2S here in the next couple of years? What's the vision of the future?
So I'm not real big into rigid plans because I think you have to be ready to adapt. I used to be a scoutmaster, and we would have a trail map, and it's like, okay, when we get to here, we'll decide whether to go left or right. When we get to here, we'll decide whether to go on to go back. You got to have, a lot of different options on the table. So I've kind of got a trail map more than a road map of possible outcomes. So we're currently in the process of implementing a streamlined ERP system at one small business in Louisville. And I've got another associate kind of lined up to be our second beta customer. And we've got some seeds that have been planted for a potential third. I'm hoping that we'll get to 3 and 5 and 10 small businesses that are willing to beta test it's a rather sophisticated ERP system. It's got a lot of the bells and whistles that the big players have, but we've done our very best to focus it down and streamline it to where you can configure it and customize it just for the pieces you need, and make that really focused on ease of use for the end user, but not compromising on the features that you may want later. And if that continues to grow, then I think by the time that I'm ready to retire, the team that I'm training up behind me will be ready to take that out and a lot of different directions. And I'm going to leave that up to them because, I'm going to be sipping something by the pool by that time, perhaps.
Yeah, hopefully. And yeah, I agree with you. Not everybody's meant to drive a Lamborghini, right? They all look great and they're phenomenal and they can get you from point A to point B as fast as possible. But some of us got a little bit of a heavy foot. Some of us can't see as clearly, and some of us will have too much fear to even hop behind the wheel of one of those things. So making it as accessible as possible keeps all the bells and whistles, but it's still a vehicle that you as a small business owner can handle. I love that, by the way. Well, Tom, before we head out, if people want to reach out, they want to find out more about what you do, any small businesses that are maybe willing to do any beta testing, how can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So company name's Integrated Information Systems. We go by I2S. Our URL is www.i2s.us. You can reach me on email at tom@i2s.us. Find me on LinkedIn. I do a good bit of posting there. On Twitter, I'm kind of contrarian. So whether or not that's an accurate disposition, I'm not sure. But certainly would welcome any and all inquiries.
Awesome. Tom, thank you very much for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, website one more time, i2s.us. Tom, thank you very much for coming on the show today, sharing your story, 30 years, and you're out here helping small businesses. Even after you've successfully done it in the DoD space, you're still taking the time to share that knowledge. I really appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a great episode. Thank you very much, Tom, for coming on the show. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started today.